Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Now from understanding children, we move to understanding potential of persons with specific learning disabilities. Remember, the child or person with specific learning disabilities is a person first. So if you've not addressed all those persons' neurodevelopmental needs, we're not ready to move to SLD. So let's start. Typically, when a child with LD comes to you, we see poor marks, we see poor academic performance, poor reading, poor spelling, poor writing. A different way of looking at it, you'll be able to understand their abilities. Because in the end analysis, what is it you want for your child? Do you want that child to say in 20 years that you taught him how to read, which is important, very important, but could you do even more? So this is what we see. Child is lost, not able to read, does not speak well. Often the parent gets focused on this, and what it does is it takes over the whole personality of the child. Alas, alas, alas. And all we see is a red blot and nothing else. So how does all this connect to child development? Here we go. Now this blot takes over the whole potential. It's like there's no potential. Let's just look back on it. So all I see is a blot. I don't see the potential. So this child, and actually if you know the whole of the child's development, you see it is just one spot in an otherwise beautiful child. So if you are able to say, yes, my child has a difficulty, but let me also understand how all of these impact, you can use his strengths to work with this. You can also use it in another way, because you can't look at LD only in one way. It impacts all areas of development. Let's see how. And this is your connection. Physically, this is required. General good health is a base for learning. If my child is not healthy, I cannot even begin to start teaching him. Let's see why sensory areas involved. Remember, if the child has difficulty, it can affect learning, not being able to see. There is a whole thing called the Irlen lens, where you need the children see visually very differently, and they may have perceptual problems. Why is motor involved? You see a clumsy child, you say dyspraxia. If his gross and fine motors are not there, you will see difficulties with cross coordination. This is at 3 years. The child must be able to jump, climb, skip, hop. That is not there. So motor areas can get affected. Why is communication involved? The child might have difficulties with the dysphasias. In cognition, of course, like we said, he may have difficulties. This is what we are seeing. Reading, writing, maths, prioritizing. This is your central executive function. We don't have time for that now, but in social areas also, it might be the child's strength, or the child might be floundering and no one has understood that his difficulties are because he has difficulties with social skills, and this also must be understood. In the emotional areas, the child might have difficulties with understanding and managing emotions. Any sensitive teacher would be handling it beautifully. We need to learn from her. The play of the child might be different, and they are all interconnected, so they can get affected. So the point that we are trying to say is, when you look at a child with a learning disability, to not only look at it as a blot of the whole personality, rather to look at all dimensions to see where are strengths, where are difficulties, what can I expect from my child, how can I use normal neurodevelopment to take my child to the next level of performance, and realizing potential. Because as we said, no two children are alike. In conclusion, all we need to remember is every child is unique. The child may be good in some areas and not good in some others. While the areas and sequence of development is typically the same for all children, there can be differences. The pace of development varies from child to child. No two children are alike. Different areas of development are interconnected, they are yet apart. So a child might have great difficulties in one area but be extraordinarily good in another. Don't forget that. Also, different areas of development may develop at different times in the child. The fast walker may not be the fast talker. So just because he is not doing it like the other children doesn't mean he isn't getting it. You've got to allow for neurodevelopment to take place. So let's go back to understanding that inside with every child there is unique potential. Our role is to observe, understand, enable that potential and use those ways which are best suited for that child. But while doing that, to keep our own self-esteem and our own learning constantly growing. I wish you happy teaching and happy working with the children.